both guys are faces, but the crowd loves The Rock here. Because of that, Foley kind of slips into the heel role in the match.
Is it a heel or is it a babyface under such incredible pressure that they have to resort to heel tactics?
It's the final Raw of the millennium, and we're here with some tales from the Attitude Era.
Nice.
Sporting his sexy Detroit Lions hat. We have the former head writer of WWE, WWF at the time, from 99 to 2001. Tommy Blacha's here, as always, of course.
The incredible years.
Yes.
The amazing years.
I agree.
Yeah.
And we're really in the thick of the greatness here this week. I am Rob Pasbani, here with you every week, recapping the shows. Today we're talking about the final Raw of 1999.
The final Raw of the century.
Yes. Although technically isn't 2000 a part of the century? Doesn't the century start?
Oh, boo. Fuck.
I'm a clean century smart
I had
mark.
that. God damn it. I had that all fucking ready to go. I guess, but it just seems so unsatisfying.
I agree. I think it should be 1900 to 99. Yeah, like fuck that.
Yeah.
Doesn't
yeah,
make
even
sense.
if it's true, fuck it. No. Let's redo it. No, it isn't.
The last round of the century, you're at the legendary Greensboro Coliseum in Greensboro, North Carolina. A huge venue. Like you could fit over 20,000 people in that. Bitch.
Greensboro, yeah.
Any Greensboro memories off the top of the dome?
No, in fact, quite the opposite. Like none. Yeah, like as usual, it's like airport arena, but specifically, very few memories whatsoever. But it's always like that. Recently, I know I went to Richmond and it was kind of like, oh, Richmond, oh, the arena. And then I actually went and got to learn the town a little recently and was like, oh, this is a cool town. Oh, I never would have, I was shitting all over it before. Like, oh, that shithole Richmond, because they had a bad arena, but which was rude. Home of the Hebners, by the way.
Oh.
And Guar. Home of the Hebners and Guar. Yeah, it should be a Richmond DJ. Welcome to W something Richmond, home of the Hebners and Guar. Right?
Yeah. WRIX. I don't know.
Yeah.
So the Royal Rumble's about 4 weeks away, and you're kind of putting the chess pieces together. Do you kind of have the basis of the card yet? Or, I mean, I'm sure you know that the main event is Hunter and Cactus probably, right?
Yeah, probably. But again, it's the same old answer. But, with Vince, sometimes he doesn't like to have it prepared. Or you think he does, or I don't know. Mm-hmm. He likes when things are broken sometimes. You know what I mean? Because I think just something like, it's that kind of thing that happens with a lot of showrunners or whatever. Like, I'm bored. This is all planned out. And I'm bored with that. But it hasn't happened. So you never know. You never know. That's like probably it. So we're leading towards that, but nothing's ever set, which is good in the sense of making things fresh and making things dynamic and being on your toes, but which is bad sometimes because you're like, oh, what the fuck's happening? So I will give that answer every single time.
I believe it. Well, I guess, you still do have a good 3 weeks. And since it's the Rumble, you only have to really book 3 or 4 matches, and the Rumble takes care of the rest.
And matches are booked last minute. And also, like, the good thing about it is, remember in previous times, like, someone's injured, something happens, So you always have to, you can't really be like, oh shit, you have to have that ability. Like a sports team. Well, there's the backup quarterback. Here's the other plan,
Yeah,
so you're always talking about other plans too, and, and possibilities. And, like I said, that machine could be like day before, make it differently. So,
right.
And, it's funny because the same thing you're doing was a lot of like the participants would come out of a meeting because you'd be more in there with Vince, like, so what's happening? What are we going towards? And I'd have to give that answer too. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, yeah, you're just, because you don't want to stooge or be, no, I really don't know. It might be this. I don't, you know what I mean? Like sometimes people would be like, what are we doing moving forward? don't know. So you had to be like, keep things close to your vest, half because they think you're like, oh, you're hiding information, because information is everything. But at the same time, you're like, everything's subject to change. Cards subject to change.
In the Observer for this week, recapping the week, it was funny. There was a note saying that The Undertaker is expected back before the Royal Rumble, which we know didn't happen. Mm. And you've been mentioning how you have The Undertaker as your ace card right now. Right. He's like on the way back, and you were, I'm guessing, holding him until just the right moment.
Yeah, and also a lot of it was, it's just like in sports, injury recovery. You kind of get you just get a word through, somehow went to Vince or whatever. Oh, he's probably 4 weeks out, and then he's not, because it's not either medically cleared or whatever. So there's some of that, and I think there may have been some kind of, he was working out and had a little setback in terms of injury. I may be making that up, but I think it sounds familiar, but it's totally plausible. But I do think at some point something like that happened. So again, you can never put all those, plans until they're,
right. You might have had plans for him for the Rumble, but then you heard about the injury. It's like, all right, got to push him
right
back. All right. Well, regardless, even though you don't have matches officially announced, the chess pieces are in place in many different angles to allow you plenty of opportunities. And this is another really cohesive show with all these storylines kind of blending into each other. And really, this, much like the SmackDown, because it's the end of the year, and a lot of people probably might not be watching because they're traveling or whatever, because this is on December 27th, 2 days after Christmas, that you don't necessarily advance the storylines too far ahead. The main storyline does get advanced, but everything else is kind of just a little more side dressing here.
Yeah, and one thing I really liked about it, and I remember talking about this, was, with the NWO, I think one of the, I don't want to call it a mistake, but something that happened when they started to take over everything, they never had this sense that, like, well, it's hard to run things. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, be careful what you wish for. Fuck, things might blow up on you. And that was a little thread or a little theme, if you will, in this, this show, which we'd always kind of try to throw a theme out there where, okay, Mick Foley's telling you, like, oh, I'm going to create some dissension. You know what I mean? There's always immediately dissension, when new administration comes in, like, okay, what are the cracks in it? Like, nothing's ever just runs smoothly. So like the NWO always seemed to be untouchable. And then, like, so everyone was herbed out who wasn't in the NWO, where this was like, okay, it's week 2 or 3 of the McMahon-Helmsley era. They're fucking running the shot, but like, oh, fuck, they didn't get their fucking victory here. And they're kind of like, fuck, we're in charge, but this is harder than you think, running this stuff. And
yeah, I do like that stuff gets blown up in their face a little bit. Their plans don't always succeed because that does get tiresome, especially as a viewer, where you are rooting for the faces and you do want them to win a little bit. And this was one of those episodes, I thought, which I liked.
Yeah, and especially when you're stacking the deck against them, you got to, like, then go to another level of, like, them beating the odds, where I remember the NWO was always like that, like, they're stacking the deck against them and then they get smashed. And then at a certain point, like, everyone's in the NWO, which was kind of fun and cool. But at a certain point, it's like, oh, fuck, there's like 80 of them in the ring, and then the people were like, we're fighting for WCW. Like, who gives a fuck? They're just, kind of like herbed out. But, so, and again, relying on Mick Foley, like that could have been the drizzling shits just coming out and having a long thing of like, oh, you think Triple H is in charge, and, trying to sow some dissension through just a long monologue while walking down the ramp. But since it's Mick Foley in his brand new, right out of the crate WWF embroidered work shirt, but still wrinkled, he just has that ability. And then even when he's getting in the ring, there's still like weirdly like tension. It was kind of like, whoa, this is fucking crazy. Like, I could see that just being the shits. And you just knew even how long it went, or even like that, Triple H is going to be out there, like, kind of like blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, oh, boo, these guys stink. You knew The Rock was going to come in. So that whole segment, even as long as it went, still like had a dynamic ending. So if it didn't, you could kind of look at like, oh, that was kind of shitty. Triple H just droned on, and it wasn't really something. But since it blew up like that, and something about The Rock, which, you know, I think The Rock is always looked at like pure charisma, absolutely. But he's kind of one of the very best at a run-in. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You just like, it's just like his style and everything.
Everyone at the top of the card are such professionals because I feel they all play their roles so well, all of them. And how you manipulate the crowd, especially with this episode, because there's a lot of soap opera type elements in play,
Sure.
and they all work. And a lot of it could be like, what is it? What is it? You know, like people could have just shat on it, but everyone bought into it.
It is, and it's so funny sometimes. It's like they're all in control, and then, you know, Mick Foley saying like, well, maybe you're an ass kisser to him, and then like, hey, does he have a point? And then
wait,
like,
am I being an ass kisser?
yeah, just the individual facials,
right.
And just how heels sit there and like, we're fucking heels, we run shit, we don't fucking care about anything, but we gotta let him say his piece and just soak it in, which is just so ridiculous, but I love it, you know, and
yes,
it works. Yeah.
So let's get into it. Jim Ross welcomes us to the last Raw of the century.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Triple H gets on the mic and flubs the last Raw of a new millennium. Doesn't matter. Still has huge heat and an asshole chant. It looks like Road Dogg kind of tipped him off. He's like, hey, I think you kind of messed up your line. Yeah. So he goes again, the final Raw before a new millennium. And how fitting that the McMahon-Helmsley era is running the show. It is fitting because in the new millennium, it is the McMahon-Helmsley era running the show.
Right.
And their plan has been almost done to completion. The only thing left is the WWF Championship. Crowd is chanting Rocky. I'm imagining this is one of those moments where you're just like, we don't even have to do anything. Look, like they already.
No, it's true. Like I said before, like you're watching this whole segment, and as long as like, it's a long fucking segment. The only thing is sometimes if it goes long, then, you know, later matches get, you know, condensed and it causes a little mayhem, especially in a Raw that's live. But you just know, like, well, this is going to cap to an ending. You know what I mean? Sometimes those long, you know, hand the microphone around ring things can be pretty shitty, but you know, like, no, Foley's going to come in and that'll be huge. And then The Rock will come in and it's going to explode. And that, you know, and that's your opening segment. So it is true.
Crowd is chanting Rocky. Triple H continues tonight. Big Show, you'll step in the ring with the singest. Singest, is that a word? Then he meant the single greatest wrestler of all time. Triple H stumbling all over his words today. I think he's nervous because it's probably his first time back in the ring since that injury. He's a little concerned.
It could be. And then, you know, sometimes that's like when you have like phrases and stuff, and sometimes you're going over it and you're starting to memorize the words as if, you know, that can be bad in wrestling sometimes, as opposed to just speaking from, you know, your heart. Like, oh, I've got a catchphrase I've got to fucking nail, and oops, you know, I flubbed it. So, but whatever, it works. It kind of works for boo.
Yeah.
You know,
he says he will be the champion for the new millennium after his match against Big Show tonight. Stephanie grabs the mic and says she kept her word. Kane is probably searching for Tori, but keeping her word, she says Kane will face X-Pac tonight. X-Pac isn't happy about this. McMahon always keeps her word, she says, unless she is forced to break it. And Mick Foley forced her to break her word and break up his union. There will be no unionizing. I was, even at the time, I remember being so stunned that you're even like dipping your toes in the water on a union-based storyline when McMahon is so vehemently anti-union.
Yeah. Well, that just goes to show you his fear of it was zero.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You know, so, and also this era, it's like this. Paychecks are going up, incomes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So everyone's kind of like, yeah, don't fuck with anything because it's going, you know, so.
Right. Yeah, like who's worried about a union since they're making so much money, right? What is there to unionize about?
Yeah. But it all came out of like discussions about being like, okay, now there's a McMahon-Helmsley era. It's like, well, that was a theme. Like,
right.
Be careful what you wish for. It's not that easy to be in charge.
Yeah. And how do employees, fight back against management they don't agree with?
Yep, and there's all that, and even like sowing the seeds for later Vince coming back, which we don't even know at this time anything, but it's kind of like, oh, he's got to come back and clean things up when stuff goes to shit. So you always have these things in your back pocket, which is a good thing too. If like, because we'd talk things out about like, oh, maybe shit goes fucking haywire, and then Stephanie's like, could be against Vince as Vince comes back and says, oh, see, I knew I had to run things because you guys fucked it up, or there's all these potential storylines like that are fun. So, which is great to have because you got potential ways to go as opposed to like, we're going down an alley and what's going to happen?
Yeah. And Mick Foley comes out, huge pop. The crowd wants to see him. And like you said, he's slowly doing this monologue, walking down to the ring.
Yeah.
He says Triple H is right. He's all here by himself. There's no union.
Yeah.
He used to think DX is cool. It was just 1 year ago, in fact, 364 days ago, that he was sitting on their shoulders, celebrating winning the WWF Championship for the first time. I thought this was a great touch. I always love when characters change allegiance and they start interacting with a character that they used to be friends with. That character acknowledges this and says like, oh, I was friends with you back then, but I wouldn't be friends with the person you became today.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Foley does. He says he doesn't see a bunch of cool guys today, but a bunch of gutless cowards.
Yeah.
Huge pop. He tries to convince the rest of DX that being Triple H's lackeys isn't working out for them. Like you mentioned, calling them ass kissers, saying they're getting beat up. Calls Mr. Ass Kisser, which he takes exception to. Yeah. And it's almost like Mick Foley puts a spell on all the other members of DX, like you were saying, because once he gets in the ring, they're standing there thinking like, am I being screwed? So they're so busy focused on that they don't think to attack him.
Well, it's like any kind of like criminals. There's a code amongst criminals, but we know we can't trust each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's always that. And Foley has a exceptional way of like, you could have this whole thing written out and someone could just bark it out. But he has this like way of like reducing like like in that Manson inspired speech and his weird sideways walk when he comes on, he's like, well, instead of a bunch of cool guys, I think I see, a bunch of ass kissers, that kind of just tone that's like just so good,
Yeah, to your point, he notes that Triple H just cares about the world title. He'll leave DX high and dry because he doesn't give a damn about you, Road Dogg. And he points to Mr. Billy Gunn. He doesn't give a damn about you. And then he turns to X-Pac and he says, and nobody around here gives a damn about you. Huge explosion. Huge explosion from the crowd.
And that was so great because he's the little one. It's just like you've got it's just
and of
the
course
seeds of
X-Pac
dissension.
like so big, like how could you?
Yeah. Not to beat a dead horse, but because the NWO is one of my favorite things of all time, and Hogan's heel turn, the greatest heel turn of all time. But at a certain point, they pointed themselves in the corner because they couldn't really sow dissension amongst them. They kind of did with like, well, there's the Red Wolf Pack and this and that, but it just, I don't know, it kind of got lumpy there for a bit. But this was like, this I like because it was like, we're right out of the gate. We're the McMahon-Helmsley era, like, oh shit, maybe it's a little rocky, and you need that moving forward to be like, oh, okay, who's going to peel off and why?
Well, I like that he took it a step too far because he turned to Stephanie and he says, Godfather wants you back there with the rest of his hoes. And that's where everyone snaps out of it. And he's like, you can't talk to her like that. And they all attack him. And then The Rock's music hits and a huge reaction. Like this is who the crowd wanted to see. And you give them The Rock while Mankind is at his most vulnerable.
Yeah. And, like you said, all these guys are pros and they're just, something like that could be like, okay, there's 4 of them and then 2 guys, run them all from the ring. That might be like whatever, or make them seem, quote, herbs, but
right.
Fucking Rock is just so good at the run-in. It was so explosive, and the crowd, it didn't seem like that at all. It was like, them even backing down, it was great, and it was not many moving parts, pretty simple. Like, okay, it comes out and Foley has the thing, and then boom, they're gone. And it's like, that doesn't seem like much, but like the participants elevated it, because they were just so good.
Triple H is furious. He says this place isn't big enough for the three of us. Tonight will be the last time you see the Rock and Sock connection, because tonight you two are fighting each other in a pink slip on a pole match. And after tonight, one of you guys is gone for good. Jim Ross can't believe it.
Yeah. Pink slip on a pole.
I love it. I love the concept, and it's very interesting. We'll talk more about it when the match comes up, about the philosophy of the match.
And I think that was like, I can't exactly remember, but this was what was so fun about wrestling and the production meeting is like, okay, so there's a match where the loser gets fired. Okay, but should it be, is that satisfying enough, or a pinfall? And then I don't know who, someone like, how about like it's, well, there's a ladder match. No, how about like it's a thing on the pole? Oh, pink slip on a pole. So it just shot, who knows who it could have said. It could have been Harvey Whippleman, could have been fucking anyone said, yeah, pink slip on a pole. And then like, that's it. It's pink slip on a pole, and it just gets into motion. And then, you go over to Richie, the Magic Man. Fuck, I got a pole. Sure, I got a pole. Always ready with the pole.
Yeah. But also you have to have the pole be high, but high enough where they could reach it from the top rope, right? There had to be a little
no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I never consider that. Like, production, you got to go set up the pole.
Oh yeah, and then you got to go to them. Like, how tall? What can you reach it? Yeah, because that would fucking be like, there he is. Oh fuck.
Yeah, I gotta climb.
Fuck. Then I'm sure, in true wrestler fashion, they'd be like, well, just pull that fucking pole down.
Yeah, right.
You would have had to fit. Yeah.
Chyna comes out after the break, and it made me realize that you've done an incredible job of separating her completely from the McMahon-Helmsley storyline, when just maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, she was helping Triple H win matches. And now she's just in her own universe with Jericho.
Yeah.
And even as Triple H and Stephanie are running the whole show and making all the matches, they're not really like forcing Chyna to do anything. There's you're keeping them separate here.
Yeah, and the Intercontinental title is separate too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's its own little story arc without interference from them. Yeah, even Jericho isn't really being annoyed by DX, even though him and Triple H have heat storyline wise, and probably behind the scenes. Let's be honest.
Whoa.
I read his book, Jericho's. Okay, so Chyna comes out. She accepts Crash Holly's open challenge based on what happened on SmackDown this past weekend, where Chyna attacked Crash after Crash attacked Jericho. Crash comes out. He attacks Chyna from behind to start the match. Hardcore Holly's on commentary. He says, playing the chauvinist, saying when he was in the ring, Chyna told him she wished she could find a man like Hardcore. We learned at some point during this match that Tori has finally arrived at the arena after her weekend with X-Pac. Chyna eventually hits the sleeper DDT for the win. Hardcore can't believe his cousin got beat by a woman. Says if it was him, he wouldn't have been losing.
Yeah, what's fun about this is, which I've always love about Hardcore and Crash Holly, is like, you can always keep them at a high level because, they can have internal strife. And if Crash loses, Hardcore doesn't necessarily look like a herb because he just gets mad at him. It's not like, the Hollies fucking lost. You fucked up. And if you could have your shit together, we'd be fucking champions, but it's your, you know what I mean? So there's always like these weird dynamics. So they're always around in the mix and not just like, they were up and now they're down. That doesn't really apply to them.
Right. It's always Hardcore's dragging, Crash is dragging Hardcore down is why they're losing.
Yeah. Even though like Crash is fantastic. It's just like fun, just weird dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
This hardcore badass. And then this like absolutely hyper resilient, small fucking, wrestler who, you could believe can grab it still is a pinfall, it's not like about beating people up. So you could always just see Crash Holly getting a pinfall on anyone with his weird little super wrestling body and his small package at any time. Well, why not?
Backstage, we see Kane and Tori embrace. She says it feels so good to see Kane, and he wouldn't believe the fabulous weekend she just had. Kane is all confused. She says the one word she would use to describe X-Pac is gentleman. She could have left any time, but she chose to stay. Why? To honor Kane's commitment, obviously. She didn't want Kane to get in trouble if she were to leave, so she stayed the whole weekend, and despite all the gifts, all the presents, and all the pampering, all she thought about was Kane. You kind of see the seeds being planted here.
Yeah. This is some just good old fucking ridiculous
Days of Our Lives stuff right here.
Soap opera. I was going to say soap opera mind fuck shit. Relationship shit.
And she says, she's going to grab Kane some coffee. It looks like he could use some. And Kane tilts his head like a dog. Like, what?
Yeah. I know.
Confused.
I don't know why we always like to put the coffee thing in there. It was a whole Kai acolytes thing was all over coffee, the coffee area, spilled hot coffee. It just became it became almost it wasn't quite as legendary as the Spanish announce table, but for some reason we always like to put the coffee percolator in the storyline. I don't know why.
So during the break, she's grabbing a coffee. And Tess comes up to her on the side and gives her like a side hug, the way an older brother might give a younger sister, like, Hey, sis, what's up? But it is very snug. It's very intimate.
Sure.
And she, her demeanor immediately changes and she feels violated. And she acts almost out of character and freaks out, slams her Snapple bottle on the floor, breaking it, and runs out of the room. Tess is like, women, right?
Yeah. Slams that Snapple bottle. Not because of it that it wasn't delicious, because we all know it is.
Especially back then. When it was the real deal. Not the way they make it now.
Yeah.
The Mean Street Posse is in the ring. We learn that for the next match, Pete Gas is a special timekeeper, Joey Abs the special ref, and Rodney is a special ring announcer. And so Rodney doing the ring announcing kind of buries each team as he's announcing them. The teams are Godfather and D-Lo, and the Dudleys, who come out in camo for the first time. I remember Bubba saying once that Vince stopped him and thought that the tie-dye was a little beneath them and they should update their look. And they did the camo.
Totally don't agree with what Vince said about the tie-dye, but it's one of those things like, you want to die on that hill?
Right.
Vince doesn't like the tie-dye. Just change it.
Yeah, it's such a trivial part of their act. But I agree. I did think the tie-dye worked for them.
Yeah, me too.
Edge and Christian and the final team, who the posse does not slag. They're like, these are our good friends and the greatest tag team in the world. It's the Acolytes. And the Acolytes come out looking a little confused. And so the match is happening.
Well, looking mostly just pissed off.
Of course.
Which they're fucking incredible at doing. They're just, they have one of the best ring entrances ever, in my opinion. And it's just them walking just down, just kind of like they smell a little bit of dog shit in the air. Just on that rain. And just it's like, it's one of my favorites whenever in the truck, cut to Acolytes, cut to opponent's defeated face, cut to Acolytes, it's just so good.
So the match is happening, and a few minutes in, Ron Simmons is in the ring. And at this point, the posse attacks Bradshaw on the apron. And during the distraction, Bubba rolls up Simmons and Joey Abs does a quick pin. This was all just a device by the posse to attack the Acolytes. The rest of the tag teams want none of this and leave the ring. And the Acolytes are not going to take this laying down. And they once again demolish the Mean Street Posse and another brutal chair shot to Rodney's head. I feel like he's still dealing with the effects of that today. This is 2 weeks in a row where Rodney gets a kaboom.
Well, this is also just a basic fun sub theme, which is how can we put the posse into a situation where they get destroyed by the acolytes.
Yeah.
Because people love to see that, and this one might, it's just a dumb little wrinkle, like, oh, I guess this isn't going to happen. Oh, nope, it is.
Backstage, Tori finds Kane and she's freaking out. Tess touched her. He violated her. And then Kane grabs her and he screams like Chewbacca, like, "Rah!" Backstage, after the break, Stephanie's showing her wedding ring off. She says it's quite a diamond. And Triple H says, hell of a rock. Speaking of the rock, he's getting fired tonight. Triple H says the new millennium is time for Angle to finally end his undefeated streak. So he's putting him in a handicap match against the Headbangers. Asks if Stephanie told Steve Blackman not to interfere with any of his matches, and she said that she did. Kay then barges into the locker room, and even though he's facing X-Pac tonight, he demands a change in his match. He wants Test instead, and they agree, and they're like, oh, this couple, they deserve each other. After the break, Angle comes out to cut a promo. There's a great sign in the audience that says the three I's are ignorance, incompetence, and impotence.
Reprehensible.
And the Headbangers come out and their look is completely updated now. They're doing more Marilyn Manson style here. They're doing just full on cross-dressing with bras, and the bras are stuffed up.
I'm not sure I'd call it completely updated, but
I guess right. They're evolving their characters. And on commentary, Lawler makes a point to be like, that's this guy who would dress like a woman. Yeah.
Well, it's just so odd, which I always liked about him, because they're like, it's not cross-dressing per se. It just comes out of like this half misunderstanding of the grunge era and how like maybe Kurt Cobain wore a dress just to be like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And then they're like, yeah, they wear dresses and now they're wrestlers and now they have bras on. And then Thrash or whatever, they almost look like, oh, it's like Marilyn Manson, but it's like, no, it's like black metal almost.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just like, what the fuck is it? Like, what doesn't matter. They're just, I think that's the ultimate point, is like, they're just so fucking weird and they don't give a fuck,
I'm into it.
Yeah, me too.
And it's Headbangers against Kurt Angle. Quick match, and Headbangers are winning until at one point Blackman just comes out and the referee's distracted with one member of the Headbangers, and he comes in the ring and just whacks the other Headbanger to help Angle get the win. The difference here is the Headbangers get their heat back, which I thought was interesting. Mm-hmm. They give Angle their finisher. Backstage, Triple H is watching and he's angered. He asks Stephanie if she really asked Steve Blackman to stay away, and she says, oh yeah, I did. I guess he disobeyed me. He's quite a dumb lug of a wrestler. Something like that. And then she says that Angle is still undefeated and that he's a really good wrestler. And then Triple H is getting a little jealous, and she goes, like you are. And he says, oh, I could take him. I'm really liking the setup. Now, Triple H is now in like 4 or 5 different feuds that you're setting up. But I love that. It's giving everyone something to do here. And Triple H the most to do, obviously.
Right.
Al Snow comes out and he gets some mic time. He talks about how he sacrificed seeing his kids, his wife, being on the road 200 days a year. And for what? Oh, and he lost his best friend. For who? Ungrateful fans who weren't even going to acknowledge that you're here to watch Al Snow's performance. Crowd boos. He looks into the camera and he says, no TV writer made me say this next sentence. This is from the bottom of my heart. I hate every single one of you.
Yeah.
And finally, Jericho's music interrupts again, positioning him as the face in the match. And they have a good match. And Snow's about to win. He hits his finisher, the snowplow. But Chyna runs out, and as Jim Ross says, Chyna just gave Al Snow head. Hits him with the doll, and Al Snow wins via DQ, continuing the storyline of Chyna not allowing anyone to beat Chris Jericho, while kind of maybe making Jericho look like a bit of a herb. Because all these people have like visual victories on Jericho here. And he needs a woman to help him. Yeah,
I like it. It's interesting because it's like I always like, like messing with that fact of like someone's helping someone who doesn't want them to help them, like where's this going? And then it's like, well, ultimately she wants to beat him or humiliate him, but it's kind of it's very coy, and it's like Chyna just kind of looks good, she's just weirdly confident and slow and like, what am I doing? No one knows. And like, that's, and it still keeps everyone elevated because he's winning. He's got the championship, but something's like not satisfying and he's confused, and it goes in a good direction, I feel.
Backstage, Mark Henry asked Harvey Whippleman for a favor. First time we've seen Harvey Whippleman on this show in quite a while, and
right,
boy am I glad. He says,
"Uh-oh,
why?
Now we got heat."
Why? You're not glad?
Wait, you're glad you're glad that he's arrived.
Oh, yeah, that he's on the show.
Heat gone.
Yeah, no, you misinterpreted. I'm glad he's been written into the show.
I thought you were saying he hadn't been on the show, and I'm glad he hadn't been on the show.
Oh, no. Okay. This is the perfect foil here because Mae Young has a very tough, strong boyfriend, and obviously Moolah can't be the third wheel.
Right.
So I love that you've written her in a boyfriend, but like her boyfriend is naturally a Herb.
Well, a Harvey Whippleman.
A Harvey. Yes, he's a Harvey.
Yeah. But just to let everyone know, we are in the Smart Mark Harvey Whippleman Appreciation Society.
Oh, absolutely.
That would be the SMHWAS.
Yes. Also known as Downtown Bruno.
Yes.
Is he called Bruno backstage or Harvey? How do people refer to him backstage?
Either or.
Okay. He'll take it.
Bruno, mostly, yeah.
So do you remember how this came about involving Harvey Whippleman in the ongoing storyline?
Well, Harvey was always a behind-the-scenes guy, Bruno, doing shit all the time around, so it was just like, someone suggested it. Hey, how about, a double date with, how about Harvey? Great. Just that simple.
Done.
No thought. And he's a favorite, and, and also someone that, it's just one of those things. Hey, Vince, how about Harvey goes out on a double date with Moolah? Great. And then you fucking do it.
Yeah, no, this totally worked.
Talked into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mark Henry's trying to talk him into it. And Harvey Whippleman's like, no way. Like, the only way would be if Moolah got me into some submission hold where I can't even get out of it. And sure enough, Moolah overhears this.
Yeah.
And she like grabs him and puts him in a choke. And he's like, now you listen here. You're going to go on a date with me. He's like, all right, I'll do it.
Yep. And then it's one of those things like, exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be a couple workers. It's going to insult.
Love it.
Basically like when you see the Acolytes in a bar, but they were at the, I believe it was the Alaskan Seafood Company in Greensboro, South Carolina. Like above Red Lobster, I might add.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll get to it in a moment. Then we have the...
Let's get to it now.
Got to be sequential here. We got to go in. It's the pink slip on a pole match.
Oh, yes.
That's next. Earlier, Foley had some promo time, and he apologized to fans of The Rock, saying he might do some things he's not proud of, but he has to do them because he cares about his family. And, he needs his job. And as a fan, you understand, of course.
Sure.
I thought this was a really done thing. At one point, I wonder, like, these are two, if you, in kayfabe, right, or out of kayfabe, I guess, these are two of the biggest stars in the company. And like, it would be a poor business decision to fire either of them and allow them to go to the competition. It would be bad for the company.
Sure.
Right. But I guess Triple H doesn't care about that. He's more about his own gain at this point.
No, that's too much. He's got to, maybe he's a hothead.
Maybe this is where the board of directors would step in and be like, this has gone too far.
Sure. Or it could, the great thing about wrestling is it's like science fiction. Like Spock died. Did he?
Right.
There's always a reinstatement.
Yeah.
Loser leaves town, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
putting that aside, I thought this was great. And both guys know what they have to do. they got to win. They want to keep their chops. Neither guy wants to get fired. And I like that The Rock almost had the match won for Al Snow to run in and try to cost him the match. He hits Rock with head. We learned that at this point there's no DQ, so he can't be stopped. Snow tries to revive Foley to get the win. Mick Foley's torn. He's like looking to the crowd like, should I do this? Should I grab the pink slip? No, I'm not going to do it. And he attacks Al Snow, throwing him out of the ring, only to walk into a rock bottom. Yeah. Al Snow revives himself and he says that's the last time he's ever going to try to help Foley, and he leaves the ring. The crowd is chanting, Rocky, Rocky. No matter what, both guys are faces, but the crowd loves The Rock here. And what I like is because of that, Foley kind of slips into the heel role in the match and gives The Rock a low blow just as he's about to get the pink slip.
Well, you could call him a heel, but remember, he did warn you that he might have to do something.
Absolutely. Like absolutely.
Yeah, so is it a heel or is it a baby face under such incredible pressure that they have to resort to heel tactics? I would say that.
Yes, that's fair. Rock gets caught in the mandible claw at one point, and The Rock is just knocked out. Mankind climbs up. He's standing on the top rope. He's about to get the pink slip, but The Rock is revived. He catches Mankind, slams Mankind's head against the pole multiple times, and Mankind takes what looks like a really nasty bump. But I watched it back, and the man is a pro. He knows how to fall. Yeah. He sat on the top turnbuckle and then basically just kind of like a backflip falling to the outside. There's no stopping The Rock now. The Rock wins the match. He grabs the pink slip. And what I liked in a very small detail, The Rock doesn't spend a second celebrating. He throws the pink slip to the ground. He doesn't even let the ref raise his hand. He's like, don't you touch me. This is gross. I want no part of this. And he immediately leaves the ring.
Yeah, I like it.
I thought this was a great finish. And just as the crowd, it was rooting for The Rock to win, immediately after, Mankind takes off his mask, and the crowd is just as behind Mick Foley. Yeah. And I thought this was really good. The announcers say that this is the last time we'll see Mankind in a WWF ring. There's never any shame in losing to The Rock, Mankind says, but there is shame in how it came about. No secret that Mick Foley was planning on calling it quits in the year 2000. But by my calculations, it's still 1999, and I think what just happened sucks. When you get bored, this is great. Put on a Mankind tape and know that I've enjoyed the last 15 years. But don't play this match because what happened at the hands of DX is a farce, and he tells everyone to have a nice day. Now, this brings up a good point. Did you have noticed that Mankind only had a few matches left here? Did you know this?
You know that his contract was up?
No, that he just wanted to retire because, like, in 2 months was his retirement match, the Hell in the Cell against Triple H.
Gosh, but he did wrestle after that, right?
Yeah, well, he had like that one other match basically immediately after.
I'm trying to think. Not really, no, but kind of. No, I can't even remember. I don't think so. I mean,
there was some mention even in the Observer, I guess that like even the Observer knew that he's on his retirement tour or something. So maybe there was some inkling of it.
I think it was just going to be like some time off. But frankly, this was always an idea like cooking around of someone getting fired, but then just always like coming to the shows and getting involved in shit and being like, I'm fucking fired, you know? So that was something I would throw out there as a storyline for anyone or someone that I always liked, like, or that someone would retire and then be like, that still show up all the time and like and get involved in matches and fuck around and always be there and like, what the fuck, you're here more than when you retired. So out of those discussions, a lot of it got applied to this. So I frankly can't, I think it just fit naturally. So I can't remember actually that he was going to really retire at this time. I would say no, because you just can't trust anything in wrestling. Like, oh, what?
I didn't think he was going to retire either at the time.
Yeah.
After the break, backstage, the baby faces are all giving Mick his flowers. And some of them are saying, something's got to happen. This is going too far. The building is continuing, the slow burn here. Val Venus's music plays. The camera's on the Titantron at this point. And, you know, they have those side angles where Stephanie's on one Tron and Triple H is on the other. And the way they have it at the most unflattering angle, it looks like Stephanie has the biggest chin you've ever seen, just the way the camera's pointed and then tilts over. Probably not something they would do today.
Well, it is an incredibly low angle of a, what do you do? Yeah.
So it is the first ever intergender 4-corner match.
Yeah.
Which, after the top rope topless match, this is pretty tame, I got to say.
Yeah.
That might have been the high water mark.
Or the low water mark.
Or the low water mark, yes. But the teams are Val Venus and the women's champion, The Cat, Viscera and Jackie, Albert and Ivory, and my favorite team, Gangrel and Luna, who just on Heat the night before were reunited. At one point, Luna is tagged in and she has to fight Albert. This is not a mixed tag match. This is an intergender match, so the women can fight the men. But Luna does get in a low blow spot and tags out. Eventually, Val Venus gets the money shot on Gangrel. Unfortunately, Gangrel was not the legal man, and the ref is telling him you can't pin him. He's not the legal man. Only for Val Venus to turn around and get caught with a bicycle kick from Albert. Albert and Ivory get the win.
You know what sucked is I was always pushing for earlier with Albert and maybe even Luna and whoever, but that like Albert was kind of like a, like an S&M slave to a manager who was a woman and would come in with a chain and we'd also get a mini who was like the gimp, all in leather that they would just sacrifice, just had all these things. And Vince was like, yeah. Oh, yeah. He's like, and he was oddly like, yeah, we'll start producing it, man. And I'm like, all right. And then all the participants loved it, but it just got shot down weirdly by Kevin Dunn in a way that was like, it was odd because I would say like, just tell me it can't happen. But it was more like, yeah, I don't know if people know about that world. And I'm like, no, fucking people know about that world. Look at Pulp Fiction, the Gimp. He's huge. And, and people are into it, and just aesthetically, it'd be great and be like, oh, what the fuck? This guy could lose. He's an actual, he comes in a dog collar on a leash. All that kind of fucking aesthetic would be like, just like a different version of the Freaks. Like, holy fuck, look at this weird faction. And I don't know. I think either someone said like, that's too far, but I was always disappointed that it was never presented to me. I always said like, hey, I'm a company guy. Just say fucking no. Don't fucking try to talk me into being like, well, this is why that won't work. Cause I'm like, it'll work. Everyone wants to do it. I'd love to see it.
Yeah. I'm into it right now. Just hearing about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So even seeing like Albert and Luna, like, fuck, that would have been, just like the fucking, just the totally weirdest fucking S&M dark gothic faction. That's like slavery and, all that kind of shit. And so it was always a little disappointing, but, there you
maybe
have
Kevin Dunn didn't want his kink exposed on Raw. Too far for him because that's what he enjoys.
Maybe they're getting too close. Yeah, I don't know, but and maybe it was the PG thing at the time, and this, that, the other. I don't know, but just
yes, that's right.
But that's always something that happens in fucking entertainment. Is they always like. Sometimes they're like, just say no. Don't try to talk you into like, no, let me tell you why that won't work. Like, I hate that. But
yeah, like if that's what we're arguing, you're wrong. But if you're telling me it's not going to go on because of censorship, okay, fine.
Yeah. And also, frankly, I'm an employee. I don't need a reason. You need to just say no.
Right.
But fucking say no. Don't talk me into agreeing. Well, yeah, it's not good. Fuck that. Yeah.
So now we're on the double date at the seafood restaurant. Now it's the time to talk about this.
The Alaskan Seafood Company.
So were you on the shoot or
yes?
Okay, so you were out there.
Yeah.
Do you get some seafood out of it? Did you get some seafood out of it?
No, I didn't. It's just too busy. It is a weird restaurant. There is one in Hollywood. I know.
Oh,
an Alaskan Seafood Company. It's a very, I guess they've been there for a while. It's kind of like I would say it's I wouldn't call it upscale, but I would call it above Red Lobster.
All right. So Mark Henry reads May a poem, and Moolah's like, why don't you read me a poem?
Yeah.
And he goes, all right. Roses are red, violets are blue, my breath stinks and yours does too. And she's just like, ah. And I'm already in love.
Well, fuck those four. It's just like, I just have a weakness because it's like, how long do you want this segment? 45 minutes? I would love to just see them eat the whole fucking meal. They just, no matter what, just it's so natural too. Like Mark Hamill, man, just read her a poem and just like it just works. I want a fucking spin-off sitcom with all four of them.
Please.
I don't know. So I have nothing to say because I have a total weakness and I can't. It's like, hey, that wasn't even a joke. I don't care. I want to see him just order fucking food. I don't know. I'm totally weakened by their presence.
Then we get Jeff Hardy versus X-Pac, which was a very fun match. This is as close as WWE is getting to the cruiserweight division that is exploding in WCW, but quite an answer here. Very good.
Exploding how?
Well, I guess that's like the only thing in WCW worth watching at the time, basically. Yeah. They just did their NWO 2000 angle on WCW, unlike Bret Hart is about to retire from wrestling permanently. So not much to look forward to on that show.
It's funny because there's something always that kind of doesn't work. It works in boxing, works on, excitement of middleweights and what have you.
Yeah.
But just there's something that, I don't know, in wrestling, like I would always argue, like just have them be participants and, and like X-Pac his whole career and not pigeonhole them. It almost doesn't work that you give someone like, let's make a division of them and give that a title.
Yeah.
Somehow, and I don't know why, but it seems to be like, I'd rather just have them, try to compete in for the one championship and just be underdogs and be too light or whatever.
I thought TNA actually did it very tastefully with the X division, where they didn't quite say this is like a weighted division. It's just like anybody can challenge for the X division title. They've had heavyweights like Samoa Joe be the champion, but then also it'll be a thing to kind of highlight the faster, smaller guys.
No, exactly. Yeah. And look like Rey Mysterio, what an incredible career. So small, but never like a lightweight champion. You know what I mean?
Right. Also, while two small guys wrestling against each other is exciting, it is also really exciting to see a small guy against a big guy.
Sure.
But these guys have a great match.
Sure.
And they actually, there's a great story to the ending, which is X-Pac is out of the ring and he stares down Terry and kind of like bullies her and is harassing her all the way into the ring, where she gets into the ring. And the ref gets in between them, and eventually Terry drops down on all fours to assist Jeff Hardy in doing the Whisper in the Wind. And shortly after that, Jeff Hardy hits a senton bomb. And I for sure thought, whoa, X-Pac's doing a job to Jeff Hardy? Not in this political climate, folks, because he kicks out. I will say, though, while he would not do the job, at least he didn't make Jeff Hardy look like a total herb by giving him the out of doing a low blow before hitting the X Factor to get his victory. But I was surprised. I thought it would have been cool for Jeff Hardy to get the win. But of course, X-Pac is far higher on the totem pole at this point.
Well, and also, to me, anyone can fucking drop it at any time. It just is how you follow it up. Because I remember thinking or coming up with things that like, okay, let's say X-Pac loses here, and then he goes back and complains completely to Triple H, and then they all go, fuck up, Jeff Hardy in some way or form. And then that could really make him just be like, oh my God, what a fucking baby fucking heel. Or then get another match where he's so handicapped where he has to win and like there, you know what I mean? So that was a way you could continue a thing like that. Like, that would work to be like, oh fuck. So Jeff Hardy, we have him lose next week or something, or get all fucked up. And then like, but he doesn't, look bad. It's just like, because the fucking shitty heel complains so much, So there's ways to go. So I always think anyone can lose at any time. It just is like, what do you do after the fact? You know what I mean?
Fair point.
In fact, I look back too at a very famous match. I'm pretty sure X-Pac, who was the 1-2-3 kid at that time, didn't Bret Hart put him over years and years ago like when he was brand new?
No, it was Scott Hall that put him over. Is that what you're
No, Bret Hart.
They did have a famous match, but I'm not sure that it might have been. I don't think Bret Hart was world champion when they wrestled, so I don't know if he put him over. But it might have been like
but it was like one of those. It was like a huge match where you knew, like, oh gosh, Bret Hart's really, in the kayfabe being like, put him over, not in the 1, 2, 3, but like,
in
the vernacular,
match,
put him
absolutely.
over, So
absolutely. Back at the date, Mark is asked by a fan for an autograph, and it's very bad manners to ask anybody for an autograph while they're eating.
Certainly is.
They're not there to give autographs. They're there to eat some food. And Mark Henry politely brushes him off, says he's there to eat. And the fan insists. And Henry's like, all right, fine. And then the fan goes, hey, Mark, why are you such a loser?
Some obvious local workers.
And this guy is like a meathead. You lost the Olympics. You lost the matches. And here I am thinking like, oh, wow, Mark Henry's going to go crazy on this guy. Only to be blindsided by the great Mae Young being like, you can't talk to him like that. And she jumps this giant 300-pound guy. And then Moolah bullies him so hard. You could tell Moolah was just waiting all fucking day to beat somebody up because she is so stiff with this guy. Like she mounts him and she's like clawing at him and everything. Like she's making this guy earn his paycheck.
Yeah. And also, you know what? She's got to. The sequence or the segment is a drizzling shits if she doesn't. Two old ladies in wrestling doing, you know what I mean? Like if it's anything pulled, it's like, that's the only thing that gives it like, whoa, you need that factor. And that's the business,
That's a great point too, because if they didn't go as hardcore as they did, which was so funny, then maybe you'd be like, well, I guess we can't put them into segments. They can't really deliver when we ask them to, right? Like that's the mentality of.
And also it just looks corny. It just looks, oh, okay. Oh boy. Oh, there's you know what I mean? You need that factor, you need to go extra,
Yeah. I wrote that this is the best segment in WWE history. I was dying laughing. This is so
wow,
fucking hilarious. I'm just so impressed with how every week you find a new way to make me laugh at these two. It's so good. It's such a great side dish to the main entree of the show.
Yeah, and they're happy too. They're happy to do it.
I bet. We have Test versus Kane. Test gets some mic time. He says he didn't touch your woman. He doesn't want your woman. He's got enough woman problems of his own, which I thought was a great line. And he says, Kane, you should get Tori some Prozac or something to chill her out, which men, by the way, never say that to a woman.
No.
Not a good way to calm them down. He says, I didn't touch her at all. And he tries to, he says, but Kane, if you want to fight me over nothing, I'm not going to back down. Tries to go and explain himself to Tori, gets attacked by Kane from behind. Eventually, Kane is just so in his emotions that he shoves the ref down, causing the DQ finish. Kane ends by giving Test a tombstone.
Infuriating. Clean finish, smart marks across the country.
Well, at least Test is protected, so I'm not that upset. But I did like that Tori got in the ring. She backed Kane off, and she gave Test a huge slap.
Yeah, pretty good. And she can slap, too.
Oh, yeah. Announcers are asking, what happened to Tori?
Yeah. And what else do I point out? Well, that's just a crowd pleaser, too. Test and Kane coming to the, in the arena, like, holy fuck, look at these two. And there was a good shot. I think we were either going to commercial or coming back. Just if you were just like someone who didn't watch it and just looking at the TV to see Kane and Tori like coming down the hallway, like, ooh, who the fuck are those? Sometimes you always forget, like, that's all you need sometimes is just those two walking down the hallway and like, ooh, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, no. And it seems like every match you try to have one super heavyweight showdown now. Like you're having like the high flying match. It's a smorgasbord here. You're giving everyone.
It is, and as old saying, you're using all the parts of the buffalo. You're using the roster,
right?
Yeah, no,
it's very, very impressive
because it is 5 hours of original programming a week.
Yes,
when you it's like holy smokes, that's a lot.
Yeah, and you don't want to overexpose anyone either. You
Right.
got to keep everything fresh and moving.
That's right. That's right, Pasbani.
The agents are saying goodbye to Foley backstage. Got a little Pat Patterson talk, which is always welcome. The New Age Outlaws come out. Road Dogg alters his intro a little. Says he doesn't say doggy style. He doesn't say bihatch. He's told he can't cuss. They take on Too Cool. And still the verdict on the name of the worm is not settled because Lawler calls it the centipede here. Rikishi knocks down Billy Gunn, distracting the ref. Brian Christopher had the match won in the ring with the Alabama Jam, which I always feel bad for his tailbone when I see that top rope leg drop. It's brutal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he does the top rope leg drop, has the match won, but who runs in but X-Pac to give the X Factor, and the Outlaws steal the win. But Too Cool get their heat back. They beat up all of DX, and they dance to close the segment. This is the difference between DX and NWO is DX will eat shit, and they'll look stupid, and they'll make even though they won't lose, they'll make the baby faces look good.
True. Although, I always comment, too, that Hall and Nash ate more pinfalls at the
true,
top of the heap
Hall, yeah.
than anyone, and it was kind of funny because in a weird way, it was kind of odd. They almost looked cool making, it was almost, I guess, from a behind the scenes view, no one had any leverage over them. They're like, yeah, sure, we'll lose. We don't give a fuck. They didn't even give a fuck about losing. So
yeah.
It was just, it was odd. Wonderfully odd.
We just want you to know we don't care.
Yeah. That's right. I think it's true.
Backstage, Triple H and Stephanie find Mick Foley and tell him he's fired. He has to leave. Get out of here. Scram.
Yeah. Got the cops on you.
Yeah. And then we get the hotel scene. Mark Henry and Mae Young are canoodling, cuddling, post-coital.
Yep.
Mae's with a cigar. And they're being all lovey-dovey. And all of a sudden the camera pans to the other double bed in the room.
Yep.
And it's Moolah being, that's enough of that lovey-dovey crap. Whatever happened to good old-fashioned American sex? And then Harvey Whippleman emerges from under the covers and looks like he just got out of Vietnam. He's like traumatized. Sweaty, wet, so good.
Yeah. And also just I remember yeah, they're in the same hotel room, just like fucking, broke high school kids on the prom or something. What the fuck?
I do love that too. Yeah, they can't afford their own rooms. Or it's like, why? It's more efficient this way,
Yeah.
Why waste the money?
You want to look over and see your buddy getting it. Just like in Vietnam, a lot of guys saw their buddies getting it,
What? All right. Now it's time for the main event. Big Show comes out.
Why the main event? You just voted this the number one segment of all time.
You're right.
WWE history.
Now what they want you to think is the main event.
We shut the TV off.
Yeah. I don't know how anything's going to follow that, but we got Big Show versus Triple H.
We
next.
shut the TV off and we go to college. We never watch wrestling again.
Triple H comes out with DX, says it's a no DQ match, but he wants DX to stay up at the stage, make sure there's no interference. He's honest.
Yeah.
Eventually, the ref, of course, gets knocked down, which I don't know why you even needed the pretense of that. It's no DQ. But
Right.
the Outlaws do come down. They grab
muscle
the belt.
memory, I guess.
They grab the belt and deck the Big Show. Ref is thrown in the ring. Slow count. I thought for sure, oh, this is it. This is how Triple H. I have no memory of how Triple H won the title back. So I'm very, I was like, oh, this is clearly where he wins. But no.
Yeah. It's good.
False finish. I totally bought into it, even today.
Yeah.
And Big Show is fighting everyone off.
That one was just so good that it really was even I knowing oh shit, did he lose it here? Because it was so close. And Big Show's so big.
Yes.
And he's laying there just it's not like a little guy that's my shoulder's up. It's he's so big and he's just laying there. You're it's oh, this is it. And he just last fraction of a second. It was a great one. It was one of the best, 2 counts ever.
Also, great cadence from referee Tim White with the slow count, too.
Yeah.
The perfect pacing of it.
The consistent count.
Yes.
It's not about fast or slow. It's consistent.
Big Show's fighting everybody off, looking like a beast, destroying all of DX. And eventually a huge chair shot to the back of Big Show feeds him right into a pedigree. And just as Triple H is about to land the pedigree and end the match, Mick Foley runs into the ring with a chair and smacks Triple H in the back. The crowd goes nuts. They're losing their crap. And Big Show, the chair shot to the back of Triple H. He sells. He walks into a choke slam. 1, 2, 3. Big Show ends the century as the WWF champion. Yeah,
it was good.
This was great. And like I said, it was so great that DX's plan was foiled because you don't want them to see them winning every time. They've been winning the last 2 or 3 episodes, I feel.
Yeah.
They got in the upper hand. So it's nice to see the volley back and forth. And it keeps everything exciting. And I'm ready for the New Year celebration on SmackDown.
Yeah, I love the end because, we have an ending like this. It's like, okay, where do we go the next week? You're like, well, the fucking heels are pissed off, running like with their tail between their legs. So they're going to seek revenge and they're in charge. Big Show looks fucking great. And he knows people are going to come after him. Mick Foley, he was fired. What the fuck can you do to him? So they don't, is he going to be back? Like I said, like showing up, there's just so many ways to go. And it's like, as a viewer, you're like, yeah, I want to see what happens,
Yeah. Like right now, I feel what's so interesting is like, it's no longer necessarily a wrestling show. It's like a TV show about wrestling.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Like what are like, where are these? It's not necessarily that I'm like, oh, what's going to happen in this match? It's like, where's this going to go? Like I'm not looking forward to a match. I'm looking forward to the continuation of a story. And I'm not criticizing or saying it's a bad thing. It's just, it's very interesting how it's evolved. And I feel like that aspect is still present in WWE today. Like this philosophical change in how the stories are developed.
Sure. Yeah. Although, it still is. You could argue at times it's always been that, but yeah, I hear you. I don't disagree. And then to quote Pat Patterson, the viewers certainly getting their money's worth with all these storyline, all these different intersecting storyline.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And to talk a little bit more about how hot things are in the Observer, not too many news bits, but they did mention that due to the Christmas season, the WWF The Music Volume 4 was up to over 101,000 copies sold, which it's like, if you're an artist, just like if you sell 100,000, you're set.
Yeah.
You're on it's on its way to gold. And comparatively, WCW released their CD Mayhem. And even with all the TV promotion, it only sold 31,000 copies. And that has some like actual metal on it. Like there's actual bands on there, not just theme songs.
Although there was a lot of, I don't know the list. We have to talk about it one time. I know that there was a lot of like metal musicians sessioned out on a lot of the WWE stuff. It wasn't all just like one here and there. So, it's interesting. We'll do a deep dive on that sometime.
Absolutely.
But, and like anything, it's the Stars. It's Austin's song and the Rock song. People wanted to fucking own it,
Yeah.
That's a big part
And Big Boss Man currently off television after being banged up in the handicap match we saw a few weeks ago with Prince Albert against Big Show. Do you remember anything about this little injury he had?
No, just that he was off and that he was, injured. He's just someone I think that would always be plugged back in. He had so much like backstage respect up and down the line. So I'll be like, okay, when he's, it wasn't, sometimes you feel sad when someone's like, oh shit, they're going to be gone and they won't be able to get back in or what have you, like with the headbangers, one went down and like, oh fuck, what do we do? That was always like a little, just, you feel a little scrubbly not being able to do something.
There was also something about British Bulldog called in sick saying he was changing tires and the car fell off the jack and landed on him.
Dear Lord. Yeah, that was you don't know what to make of it. You're just like, what? Oh, okay, fuck.
Yeah.
So just odd, what can you say?
Yeah. And finally, the final bit is TV Guide ran a thumbs up to WWF for the way it's toned down its television, mentioning SmackDown, which in specific is at least toned down to make a better product for children. Meltzer comments, sort of hilarious when you think about it.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show you when you and even, with the 100,000, who knows if it's 100,000 bought in earnest? Did WWF buy 50,000? Did fucking WCW buy 15,000? What are the real numbers? Fuck, it's all, kids, it's all bullshit. You know what I mean? Like who told TV Guide to write that? You know what I mean? Or, who the fuck knows? There's just, publicity machines, this, that, and the other. TV Guide meant something back then, but I can, don't ever look at it like we're just independent people making an opinion about something.
Right.
Fuck, who fucking knows? You know what I mean? And also that's just like the wrestling world. Everything comes down to like, hey, what about this? From the Montreal Screwjob to anything. Well, I could believe it this way. I could believe it that way. I could believe it. I could believe it north. I could believe it south. It could have been east and it could have been west. That's just everything. Like, what do you do? Unless you know, you don't know. So.
Well, that's our show, folks. As always, please, if you like what you hear, give us a thumbs up, a rating, a nice rating in your podcast app. For the love of God, please leave a comment.
And if you don't like what you hear, subscribe anyway and give the thumbs down.
Yeah. And of course, you can send your feedback, tftattitudeera@gmail.com. TFT is Tales from the, obviously. And our social media handle is also TFT Attitude Era. We're on Twitter. We're on Insta. We're on TikTok. We post reels. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Tales from the Attitude Era.